Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Brown May. Here. Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman. Here. Assemblywoman Gallant.
Here.
Assemblyman Gurr.
Here.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Here.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Here.
Assemblyman Miller.
Present.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Here.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Present.
Chair Watts.
And I am here. We have all members present. Welcome to everyone joining us today here in Carson City, anyone joining us in Las Vegas, as well as joining us by phone. A few quick housekeeping items before we begin. Please silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in by the door and provide a business card if you have one to our committee secretary. When testifying, please be sure to turn on the microphone, clearly state your name, any affiliation, and turn off the microphone when you're done speaking. Let's see. Public comment will be occurring at the end of today's meeting. We will limit all public comment to 2 minutes. Anyone wishing to provide public comment or to provide testimony by phone can find the call-in information on our committee agendas, which are posted on the Nevada Legislature's website. With that, members, we will get into our agenda. We have 3 items on our agenda today. I am going to take the items slightly out of order, so we are going to begin with a presentation from the Governor's Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology. We'll then move into our bill hearing for today on Assembly Bill 151, and then we'll finish with a presentation from the Nevada Clean Energy Fund. So with that, we'll move right into our agenda with a presentation from OSIT. Director Mitchell, I believe, is joining us remotely. Whenever you are ready, feel free to introduce yourself for the record and begin. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Mitchell, the Director of the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, or OSIT. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Great. I appreciate the opportunity today to talk about broadband and the opportunities that we have coming before us over the next couple of years. There's never been a more exciting time to be in broadband policy, and I really appreciate the opportunity, Chairman Watts, to share with you a little bit about what we're doing and what folks can expect to see over the next couple of years. I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about our vision for broadband in the state. Our vision is universal access, which means that every Nevadan, regardless of their race, income, or zip code, would have opportunity to have access to a high-speed internet connection that is affordable, reliable, and scalable. What we mean by that is that we want internet infrastructure in the state that will grow and have the capacity to meet our bandwidth needs over time, and that is affordable for people to be able to access. How we'll get there? We will get there only through having strong collaborations and partnerships across different state and local government and community organizations, as well as our strong partnerships with our provider community. So collaboration and partnerships are very important. We also will need to have efficient use of funds. While the amount of funding that is coming down the pike for us is significant, we know that it won't be sufficient to meet our universal access goals without having strategies in place that will braid and weave together funding sources from multiple different sources in order to most efficiently use funds based on the rules of the funds. The final thing that I'll just talk about briefly is that when we make investments, we want to focus on making long-term investments. As great as it is to do things in broadband, we don't want to end up back in the same place in 5 or 10 years from now. because we have only built short-term investments in those, and we need to make more investments. So I think we're going to be focusing on making long-term investments that will be generational and continue to have an impact on Nevadans' lives over the next 20 to 30 years. I wanted to start off, I think, by talking a little bit about digital equity and defining what that means. Infrastructure kind of sucks a lot of the oxygen out of the room, but without digital equity, none of the infrastructure work that we'll be doing over the next several years will really mean a whole lot. So with digital equity, you can really think about digital equity as people infrastructure. And I think digital equity can easily be explained by describing it or likening it to a three-legged stool. So the first leg of the stool is related to affordability, meaning can an individual afford a high-speed, reliable, scalable broadband connection in their home or in their business? It doesn't really matter if we build fiber all the way to your house. If you can't afford it, you're just as unconnected as you would be living, in the middle of nowhere. And so everything that we do has an eye towards affordability, and can that person or can that community afford their internet connection? The second ingredient for digital equity is device access. So do you have access to a connected device that is modern and able to handle the applications that are commonly used on the internet today? I think we've all heard stories of kids in school who were writing their term papers during the pandemic on a cell phone. And that type of device, if that's your only access to the internet, is just wholly insufficient for modern and effective use of the internet and equitable use of the internet. So we want to make sure that everyone in the state has access to a connected device that they can use whether it's for education or looking for jobs online, telehealth, or just keeping in touch with family and friends. The final leg of the three-legged stool is digital literacy. Or digital skills. And so digital literacy is a concept of, do you know how to use the internet for more than just watching videos online? So what we want is to help folks with where they are to get the kind of skills that they need. This can be as basic as learning how to turn your Wi-Fi on, and can be more advanced for learning basic an understanding of how to use web tools or Microsoft Office or things like that folks might need in order to get a job. Without each one of these three things, again, none of the infrastructure that we put in, will have a meaningful effect on Nevadans' lives. So as a part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA, there's a $2.75 billion nationwide funding source called the Digital Equity Act. And within the Digital Equity Act, there are three pots of money. The first pot is a state planning grant, which OSIT has received its state planning grant, wherein we will develop a statewide digital equity plan. Once we've developed our statewide digital equity plan, and I'll talk a little bit more in just a second about what that means, we will unlock a state capacity grant funding. And so the state capacity grant will allow us to implement the strategies that we identify in our statewide digital equity plan. There's also a $1.25 billion nationwide competitive pot of money that the state won't be eligible for, but any nonprofit or community organization that engages in digital equity work will be eligible for that. So what are we doing with our Digital Equity Act planning grant? We're doing a lot of community outreach and engagement. We're going to be visiting every county of the state and talking with stakeholders and the public, community organizations, to understand needs and to understand the community assets that each individual location has, and then to develop strategies that can meet the needs that we see throughout the state. When the state receives its state capacity grant program, the funding decisions must be based on the plan. And so one of the things that we tell stakeholders is that their participation in the planning process will directly affect how the state spends its digital equity capacity grant funds. We don't plan to create new state programs or new state capacity in this regard. Rather, all of the funding will be pushed down to the local level in a competitive grant program to local actors, local community groups, local entities, nonprofits, et cetera, that have the existing relationships with the folks who need the digital equity supports and initiatives, and we plan to invest in local communities. We've created a number of different mapping resources that are all available on our website that describe the kind of the scope of what is going on in the digital equity world, and where we feel, at least according to the data, it would be a good place for us to start looking or to start engaging with communities with regard to their digital equity needs. The map on the far right that's kind of orange and yellow colored is the enrollment rate for the Affordable Connectivity Program. This is a program that provides a $30 a month subsidy for anyone who qualifies for Medicaid, SNAP, TANF, SSI, or senior rental assistance. If you have a student in the school lunch program, or if you're a college student that received a Pell Grant, and on and on and on. Basically, if you're below 200% of the federal poverty level, you qualify. And so the orange or the darker areas of the map on the right show a greater enrollment rate in the Affordable Connectivity Program. We could really use all the help we can get to spread the word about the Affordable Connectivity Program. And if you're interested in partnering with us to reach out to your constituents and to help them get enrolled and get connected, then please let our office know, and we'll be happy to provide you with some outreach materials that you can send out to your constituents. I'd now like to move and talk a little bit about infrastructure. And here we have I've just kind of modeled, or I visualized the 13 different broadband funding sources that we're tracking. So when we talk about needing to efficiently weave together different funding sources for broadband, these are some of the funding sources that we're monitoring, and that will either come to the state via formula, or that the state will competitively apply for in order to meet our broadband needs. I'd like to talk a little bit about what we're doing in phase 1 of the High Speed Nevada initiative, and then I'll move and talk a little bit about, or I'll preview what we're going to do in phase 2. In phase 1 of the High Speed Nevada initiative, one of the things we've realized is that a lot of communities throughout the state lack the kind of broadband infrastructure that they need in order to have a robust, high-speed, affordable residential service. And so we began in phase 1 by focusing on community anchor institutions like libraries and schools, as well as state and local government facilities that you'll see represented by the gray dots on the map on the right. And we identified over 1,000 different state and local facilities, and are currently in an RFP process to solicit bids to serve these state and local government facilities and the community anchor institutions. And while it's certainly important to provide better connectivity to these facilities, we also believe that this will set us up well for phase 2, when we can then branch off of the infrastructure that we build in phase 1 to better connect individual residences and businesses that are underserved today. So in phase 2, we will use funding from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as the Capital Projects Fund, to begin to better connect individual residences and businesses. The BEAD Fund, which is the Broadband Education or Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Fund, is a $42.5 billion fund that the state will receive a formula grant from in order to build out to last mile or residential areas of the state that are unserved or underserved. The timeline, one of the questions I get asked quite frequently is, when are you going to connect to my house, or when are you going to bring better broadband to our community? And believe me, nobody wants to start digging up roads, and laying infrastructure more than I do. But there's a lengthy process that was outlined in the law and by our federal partners, wherein we have to submit plans, do community engagement, and then identify the areas that are most unserved, and then go through a competitive process to allocate funds to providers that are interested in serving those areas. So so this is a process that will take place over the next several years, and by 2026 we hope to be finished and have reached our universal access goals. One of the things that's really important is that we have an accurate accounting for where unserved and underserved locations are. The FCC has been tasked with creating a map that maps all of the locations in the state or in the country, and whether they are served or unserved. We have there's a process wherein if either states or governments or even individual residents feel like the map is inaccurate, that there's a challenge process where folks can submit challenges to the map. And so far, we have submitted over 46,000 challenges to correct either missing locations or locations where we felt that the level of service that was described in the map wasn't accurate. And the challenge process is ongoing. And why this is important is that based on the number of unserved locations that we have in the state is how much money we'll get to serve them. So we want to make sure that the map is as accurate as possible, so that we get the state's fair share of funding for this. The final thing I'll talk about is just kind of how we're proceeding through this process. Our role is community engagement, to understand needs throughout the state and to talk to folks about what kind of infrastructure they'd like to see, and build local capacity of our partners in local communities. And then once funding is received, to allocate that in a fair, open, and competitive process to provider partners that are aligned with our mission to provide affordable, reliable, and scalable internet service to everyone. There'll be a lot of federal reporting involved, and we'll also be taking care of that. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for that overview, Director Mitchell. And we appreciate you providing the overview. I know you provided some of this information to the Ways and Means Committee, but think it's particularly helpful for members of our committee to be aware of as well. Members, do we have any questions for OSIT? We'll start with Vice Chair Brown-May.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director, for the presentation. I'm going to take this opportunity to ask a question I did not ask in the Money Committee the other day. So thanks for doubling back on some of the topic issues. You talk about affordable, reliable, scalable services for unserved or underserved communities. And then there was a part of your presentation, and I don't know that you talked about it today, where you could have a $30 credit, right? So essentially you could have access to broadband for free. But I'm curious to know, is that a high enough speed of broadband to be able to serve, let's say, a mom and 2 kids who are both in school, right? So is there enough access at that level? How do we know we're providing enough broadband access for the family, the typical family of 4, to be able to have their devices online?
Thank you, Vice Chair Brown-May, for the question, and I think you've hit an extremely important question that is something that we need to tackle. It's not enough to provide someone with a subsidy for dial-up. right? So if all someone gets for their subsidy is an internet connection that's very slow and doesn't meet their needs, then they aren't really connected. And so the federal government has established certain guidelines for what constitutes high-speed internet, and so any funding that we receive must build out infrastructure that is capable of providing speeds at those levels that have been defined by the federal government. And so the affordable plan must provide a minimum speed that meets those definitions. And so, absolutely, I agree with you 100% that folks on the Affordable Connectivity Program deserve every bit of fast a connection as folks in the who are buying at retail. And so everybody who's on that plan will have to meet the minimum specifications in order to receive funding.
Thank you. Next, we have Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, then followed by Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Can you sort of clarify for us what you mean by build out? And I'm old school, so I come from the days when we would lay wire for telephones, right? And that was used for our dial-up service. Then time passed and we were laying cable for internet. Is that still part of the infrastructure that is needed, or is everything cloud-based?
Thank you for the question. And if you don't mind, I'll take just a minute to provide a really brief overview of the different types of broadband technologies and then which ones that we will fund. So there are wired technologies, and then there are wireless technologies that can be used for broadband. And then there's also satellite technologies. So among the wired technologies include fiber, cable, which you might get from from your cable company if you have internet through your cable company. And then there's copper, which is like the telephone wires that you mentioned, and that is where DSL comes from, if you've ever heard of DSL. You can also get your internet wirelessly, and I'm not talking just about like from your like cell phone kind of internet, but also, but there's wireless providers that provide a fixed wireless connection to homes. And then I'm sure many of you have heard of companies like Starlink that provide a satellite service to consumers. The internet is really built on fiber. Even companies that are cable or DSL providers, their backbones are all fiber fed. And so fiber has been identified by the federal government as a priority for us to connect homes with. So where it makes sense, we will push as much fiber as we can into the residential ecosystem. And use as much fiber as we can to connect homes, because fiber is the technology where you can get the fastest speeds that are most scalable, and it's also the longest term solution. So a fiber solution is a 30-year investment or a 30-year asset. Having said that, the downside to fiber is that it's more expensive to deploy than say satellite or fixed wireless. And there are going to be some areas of the state where where it might be too expensive to do fiber to the home. And in those areas might be areas where the density levels are such that it's just too expensive and we don't have enough money. So these are conversations that we need to have with communities about the infrastructure that's possible in their community. And when done correctly, a wireless solution for a very low density community can be just as fast as other and just as reliable as other different technologies. And so I think fiber will be the first thing that we do, and then we'll follow up with wireless in areas where we can't.
Follow-up, Chair? I would hope that you are working with local municipalities, especially in urban communities where there is construction going on, so that they can assist as roads are being worked on to lay conduit so that the fiber can be deployed easily and not have to cut streets. And I think that that's an area that could be very helpful. We have a lot of construction going on in urban Las Vegas. And my community for sure has issues with connectivity. We saw that during the pandemic. We had children sitting by buses, trying to get internet. So if we had that in the streets where it could be deployed with easy pulling of the wire, it would be wonderful. So I hope that you will, and if you need help, we're here, but I hope that that would be an option that you're looking at. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and I do believe that the Department of Transportation has incorporated some of that, but again, we know that there are a lot of different entities doing a lot of different road projects, and definitely makes sense when we're doing some infrastructure projects to get the most bang for our buck and plan ahead as much as we can. Assemblywoman Peters?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to follow up on those questions because I had related questions pertaining to the use of fiber versus satellite. You touched a little bit on that the satellite options or the wireless options are something to be considered after we've explored broadband as far as it can go. But are you working on integrating in your planning where wireless or satellite might be a higher benefit to the state? And we were just talking about areas in the state where it doesn't make a lot of sense to dig up the road again or to try and lay fiber, but that doesn't mean accessibility should be negated. It just means we have to approach it in a different manner. So what are some opportunities in that space? And if you can point me to a plan that I can look at, that'd be great. If not, what are we working on to get there?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Peters, for the question. And just in follow up to the previous question as well as yours, the Department of Transportation, NDOT, and OSID have worked together on what was called Dig Once and joint trenching legislation back in 2017. And so there's NRS on the books that allows for multiple projects to be put into the same trench. So we dig up the road fewer times, and nobody likes construction on the roads, and certainly that'll save expense. So NDOT is a great partner of ours in that sense. When it comes to making decisions about where and how much fiber and where other technologies come into the solution, I would like to describe a little bit the process that we're going through to determine just that. So number one, our process begins with a lot of local engagement. Understanding the current connectivity situation in every community of the state, whether it's an urban community in the middle of a place like Las Vegas or Reno, or the most remote communities elsewhere. Then there's an assessment of existing infrastructure that's made, and then throughout our process, we are in the process of developing cost modeling tools that will help us to understand how much it would cost to deploy fiber to the home solution in a given location, or whether it might make more sense to have a wireless solution be a part of the solution in a given location. The other thing I'll mention is that we won't be able to finalize some of those plans until after June 30th. I didn't get into detail in this in my presentation, but the largest source of funding that we have available is that BEAD fund that I mentioned briefly, and the state won't find out or no state really, will find out what their allocation is until June 30th. And that's when when our partners at the NTIA will inform all states of how much of that 42.5 billion each state is receiving. And so once we know how much money total we have to spend, that will inform kind of our direction in terms of the technology mix of how much money of how much fiber goes where.
And I just, for the record, think that it's important for us to address these two needs simultaneously and not let our rural communities hang out there without service while we're digging in the ground, when we could offer those services in some way or form before we get the broadband laid out.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Gallant.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Assemblywoman Peters, for pointing that out. You're talking about we have to meet certain benchmarks in terms of upload and download speed. Do you know what those are in order to access that money?
So what we are planning to deploy is a 100 megabits per second download, 100 megabits per second upload. And that comes from the federal guidelines.
Does that exist? Or I'm sorry, do you mind if okay. Does that exist on the West Coast or anywhere in Nevada?
Brian Mitchell, for the record, yes, there are places in Nevada where you can have those speeds.
We could, but do we currently?
There are companies today. Brian Mitchell, for the record, there are companies today that offer those types of speeds. Having said that, that's for any new infrastructure that's built, the new infrastructure would have to, the provider that builds the infrastructure would have to offer a plan that meets those speeds to consumers.
Do you mind if one more, sorry.
I think we're going to move it
Okay.
along. But Director, if you could provide maybe a little bit of follow-up information. I know this is also a provider issue, but I think it might be of interest to the committee, a little bit of information on at a high level on some of the speeds that are provided and offered, and putting a little context around those. I know that some providers go up to gigabit speeds, so which is, I think, 10 times the 100 that you've discussed. So any other questions from the committee members? All right. Seeing none, thank you again for providing us with this presentation. I think this has come up in the Budget Committee as well, but we know that your agency has a lot on its plate with managing many different programs and pots of funding. And while the need is great and urgent, we know that you're certainly going to have your hands full over the next few fiscal years implementing everything that's on the books. And we look forward to continued partnership to make sure that we get affordable access deployed across Nevada as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and look forward to the partnership as well.
All right. Members, we're going to go on to the next item on our agenda, and that is our bill hearing for today. We are going to be hearing Assembly Bill 151, which provides for the issuance of special license plates commemorating the 150th anniversary of the founding of the University of Nevada, Reno. Welcome to the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, Assemblywoman Anderson. Mr. President, whenever you're ready, you can introduce yourselves for the record and begin. I will open the hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Watts, Vice Chair Brown-May, and members of the Growth and Infrastructure Committee. My name is Natha Anderson, and it is my honor to represent Assembly District 30. I am a proud second-generation University of Nevada, Reno graduate. I followed in both my parents' footsteps, majoring in education and graduating. I don't need to say the year. We can move on from there. I'm here today with UNR President Brian Sandoval and ASUN President Dion Stanfill to present AB 151, a bill proposing legislation to create a license plate in celebration of our sesquicentennial, or 150th birthday. You want to know how many times I had to practice sesquicentennial? Although not mentioned in the language, the proceeds from the license plate will be directed into the university's student food pantry, known as PAC Provisions. The food pantry actually serves students, faculty, and staff. And the need, it sounds like, has increased over the last few years. So I think it's wonderful that the university has made the decision to utilize the funds in this way. In October of 1874, 7 students, 7, not even, I was trying to do some math, I guess the back row, smaller than the back row of this committee, began to study the topics of agriculture, mechanical arts, and mining. These 7 students were the first to study at the University of Nevada in Elko. In 1885, the campus was moved to Reno, and in the spring of 1886, welcomed 35 students. Watch out. The numbers grew to leaps and bounds, and they became members of the Wolfpack Nation. Still, though, not exactly booming. Steadily, this number has grown to the current student population of 20,945, and we have gained Tier 1, or R1 status, from the Carnegie Classification of Institutions of Higher Education, a classification we share with our sibling university and the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I believe the University of Nevada, Reno has many plans to celebrate our sesquicentennial, and with the chair's permission, I would like to have you and our president, Brian Sandoval, continue the presentation. And just a quick little side note, President Sandoval is also one of our former governors and also a former assembly member. So it is my honor to present it over to you and our President Sandoval.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman. Welcome back, President Sandoval. Go ahead.
Yeah. Chair Watts, Vice Chair Brown May, members of the committee, for the record, Brian Sandoval, President of the University of Nevada, Reno. I want to thank Assemblywoman Anderson for the opportunity to present today, and thank you for hearing this bill. I don't have a lot to add. I think the founders of this state, in their wisdom in 1864, created the Nevada system of higher education, and 10 short years later, as the Assemblywoman described, established this campus. A little bit of trivia: when it moved to Reno, the legislature had a vote, and they voted to move the campus because there were only 7 students to Reno versus Carson City by 1 vote. So it could have been the University of Nevada at Carson City by the mere fact that it was 1 vote. But through those years, obviously the campus has grown, the Nevada system of higher education has grown. And I was thinking about it, you only turn 150 once. And the state enjoyed its sesquicentennial 9 short years ago. And again, this university will be celebrating its sesquicentennial next year, beginning October 12th, which is the anniversary of the university. As the Assemblywoman said, there are a series of events that we are going to have on campus throughout that year, from October 12th, 2023 through 2024, culminating on the 150th birthday on October 12th, 2024. I have, and this is just a concept, but recently we had a logo designed for the sesquicentennial, and there were 3 candidates for that, and one of those was selected by a popular vote of several thousand. But again, this isn't a final version, but I thought sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. But here are a couple of versions that you could see, and you can see the logo there, and that is Morrill Hall, which is the iconic building on the campus, which actually was built when Grover Cleveland was president of the United States, to put things in perspective. But with that, again, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, we're grateful for your hearing this bill and would appreciate your positive consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
And since the practice and core value of the University of Nevada, Reno has always been about student voices, or at least from my experience, I would, again, with the chair's permission, ask for ASUN Student Body President Dion Stanfill to continue our presentation, if that was okay with you.
Of course. Thank you very much. Welcome, Madam President. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon to the committee. For the record, my name is Dion Stanfill, spelled Dionne, Stanfill, Stanfill. Let me just start by saying how excited I am for the university's 150th birthday. Yesterday, as many of you know, was ASUN's day at the legislature. And as ASUN president, one of my pillars in my campaign is history. And in that pursuit, our campus has so many historic and symbolism. For example, the first museum in the entire state of Nevada is on our very own campus. And in part of that campaign, we are relaunching the Art and Media Yearbook. And something funny, I was just talking to the president about this the other day, is in the 1986 edition, when he was involved in ASUN, he has a quote that says he was so excited to be a part of the committee that celebrated the university's 100th birthday. So it's pretty awesome, and this moment is very symbolic for me. I think that's correct. I hope that's correct.
No, just dating me a little bit. Thank you.
Sorry. But yeah, just for the record, I wanted to say how thankful ASUN is for even considering this donation to PAC Provisions. PAC Provisions, not quite as old as the university, but it is celebrating our 30th birthday this year. Started in 1993 and has a huge impact on our campus, not only to the undergraduate students, but to the graduate students, faculty, and staff. Last fall alone, we had over 4,000 visits for PAC Provisions. And nearly 1/4 of the student body population, through a course of 3 survey waves, reports facing food insecurity. So it certainly is an issue on our campus. That being said, since 2021, we are prepared to try to accommodate a 300% increase in donations through PAC Provisions. So it certainly is a very important service on our campus. And again, I just want to say thank you on the record.
Thank you very much.
The bill itself is pretty straightforward. You'll notice that it just adds in Section 1 the ability to be able to utilize 150th anniversary plate because, as the president brought up, you only celebrate 150 once. So with that, I am more than happy. I think all 3 of us are more than happy to take any questions, comments, or concerns. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Members, questions for the panel? Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I have mixed feelings about this because it's beautiful to celebrate the history of our state, but it is dreadful that our students need to be using food pantry facilities in order to live in our community and go to our educational institutions. So I have mixed feelings about this particular bill, and I'm working in a separate committee on addressing some of these issues. But my question has to do with the fee and how many plates you expect will sell. I imagine you have a quantity in mind. And how much of the fee, that $35 initial fee and then the $10 annual fee, will go to PAC Provisions?
I'm going to ask President Sandoval to answer that, or I can also phone a friend known as Michael Flores behind me.
Mr. Chair, to you and through you to the Assemblywoman, my recollection is you have to have at least 500 plates in order to qualify to have the plate made and disseminated. So I'm confident that we're going to have well in excess of that. And whatever the amount is, the increment, 100% of it will go to PAC Provisions. I share your concern with regard to food insecure, and that we are actually providing some internal resources to make it even more accessible, that PAC Provisions, and we're working with the local nonprofit as well in that regard. But if it is the $35 will go to the PAC Provisions, and when you renew the license plate, that amount will also go. I do want to state for the record, what we anticipate is this plate will be similar to the sesquicentennial plate that was made for the state sesquicentennial, so it will only be available temporarily. It will not be forever. We're very well aware that there may be some other very worthwhile nonprofits or entities that are seeking a license plate as well. We don't want to be a line jumper, but as I said, we have a very finite amount of time within which to introduce that plate and have it be popular. As I said, I don't have an exact number for you, but we have tens of thousands of alumni and supporters throughout the state of Nevada, I think, that will very much like to have the plate. Thank you. And Brian Sandoval for the record.
Thank you very much. And if there are any additional questions, you can go directly to the member in responding. We'll start with Assemblyman Gurr and then Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the presentation on the bill. It's not really a question, it's just a comment. Miss Stanfield comes from our little community, and she does really a proud job. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Dickman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Governor Sandoval. It's so good to see you. It reminds me of 2015, takes me back. Just a quick question. So if the plate is temporary, kind of, like, for example, I have a life plate, and that one you cannot still get, but when you renew, you can keep it. Would this be the same?
Brian Sandoval, president of the University of Nevada, Reno. For the record, the answer is yes. So although you may not be able to get that plate, for example, after 2 years, you will be able to keep that plate, and every time you renew it, the proceeds will go to the PAC provisions. Similarly, as I mentioned, the state sesquicentennial license plate, if my recollection is correct, the proceeds went to the state museums and the state parks, and they continue to do so each time you renew that plate.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Members, additional questions? And I guess I really appreciate both the questions and the responses to them, and I'm familiar with some of the plates. I know City of Las Vegas also did a commemorative plate, and that has helped fund some arts and cultural activities. I think it helps support the initiative to restore the Hundredth Theater in the district that I represent. So I'm definitely familiar with this. I think less of a question, but a request for follow-up is just to make sure, I think we're going to need to do an amendment on the bill, first of all, to make sure that we're clarifying where the funds are going so that they benefit PAC provisions, and to make sure that we have a similar setup in terms of the limited release of the plate. I think one of the more recent ones that we did was celebrating women's suffrage, and I believe that was another short-term plate issue that we did. So we want to make sure that that is that's the case. And I think we have the Department of Motor Vehicles in the room who may be able to provide some additional information in the neutral position. So that's really just the request. And also I do believe that part of this in jumping the line, so to speak, is that there are none of those plate requirements. We're essentially going to kind of put you in there, allow folks to get it for a limited time, and then kind of lock the door on that plate. So I just wanted to make sure to turn it into a question that my understanding of the intent is the same that you have as the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nathan Anderson, for the record. That is what I understand as well. I greatly appreciate the amendment for the money and I just thought we were able just to say that it would be there, but totally agree with the fact that we need to put the clarification around there. I share the same concerns around how sad it is that we have to do that, but I'm happy that at least we have one way to be able to raise money for it, and then also the fact that there's a short-term time frame to be able to get it. Completely makes sense to me.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. The one other question that I had, I believe UNR already has a license plate, and can you just briefly describe where the proceeds from the UNR plate go?
Mr. Chair, for the record, Brian Sandoval, president of the University of Nevada, Reno. Yes, the university has an athletics plate similar to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and the proceeds go to the athletic department.
Thank you very much for that. Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the celebration. We look forward to helping the school with this. My question is probably more for maybe the Department of Motor Vehicles. I'm just curious, these special license plates, is it typical that they just have a 2-year life and then after that time they disappear? Because we have a growing number of special license plates out there. I'm just wondering how that all works in general, and I don't know if anybody's available to answer that now. If not, I'll research it later.
And if perhaps, Assemblywoman, we can also discuss the proliferation of license plates with the department in the neutral position.
I am, unless somebody is here, I'm more than welcome, though, to get that information for you. I don't see anybody coming up, so I'll get that information for you, though. Assemblymember Anderson for the record.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you all so much for the presentation. With that, we're going to move into, I'm going to open testimony on Assembly Bill 151. We'll begin with testimony in support. We'll start with testimony here in Carson City, then we'll move down to any expats down in Las Vegas, and then we'll go to the phones. Yeah. Welcome, Mr. McKay. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Andrew McKay. I'm not really in my capacity as the executive of the Nevada Franchise Auto Dealers Association, just as a proud fourth-generation alumnus of the University of Nevada. This is a cool bill. It goes to a great cause. I, too, have a University of Nevada athletic plate, amongst other specialty plates. They go to great causes, and this was amazing to listen to this and just enthusiastically support it. And I'm going to buy one and put one on probably my wife's car, I guess, is probably what we'll do. So just want to put that on the record. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kent Irvin, State President, Nevada Faculty Alliance, and a UNR faculty member. We support the bill. We share the concerns about food insecurity of our students. This is a nice symbolic gesture towards that problem with some monetary benefits also. So we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isabella Hatt, for the record, ISA, BELLAHATT. I'm within the University of Nevada, Reno, associated with ASUN as the Assistant Director of Government Affairs. We were here yesterday, as I'm sure you guys all saw us. My support for back revisions lies in the service's fundamental mission to offer a free resource that provides myself, other students, staff, and faculty support to achieve academic success through access to food, including produce and protein, as well as hygiene supplies that can be hard to come by at school and in the community. Pack Provisions provides me a safety net for myself and others with food insecurity. I'm a full-time student, taking 18 undergraduate credits while also working 2 jobs and worrying about all of the other major concerns that come with being a college student. Pack Provisions with continued funding can ensure I have somewhere to get food and hygiene supplies while I'm struggling financially. Pack Provisions eliminates barriers for myself and others face while experiencing financial hardships, as well as a safe space for continued social wellness. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next.
Hello, my name is Matthew Sauls, spelled M-A-T-T-H-E-W, last name S-A-U-L-S. I'm also with ASUN from the University of Nevada, Reno. I serve as the policy director for the Department of Government Affairs within the association. As you all know, we were here yesterday giving out some pins and going around having some good meetings. So I just want to talk about my personal experience with the food pantry. So I volunteer there regularly whenever I have time, along with other organizations that I'm a part of. You can see just how much it means to students that come through, how easy it is, how accessible it is. A lot of people love coming to it because it's a judgment-free zone. A lot of students who would rather not go out in the public to other food pantries and feel as though they might be judged or looked at differently. They love coming to the food pantry within the Center for Student Engagement to make sure that it's a very easy and accessible experience. Along with that, I also look forward to getting a license plate, as I will soon be registering my car in Nevada. So looking forward to that plate is something that I'll be getting soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Peveril Shipley, spelled P-E-V-E-R-E-L, Shipley, S-H-I-P-L-E-Y for the record. I am the Student Outreach Coordinator for ASUN, and I'm a Mathematics and Economics student at the university. And I'd like to voice my support for AB 151 because Pack Revisions is an awesome resource for on campus and on the community. And as someone who was raised by a single mother for a large portion of my childhood, I know firsthand how crucial food pantries and similar resources can be for families and individuals in need, because I relied on them myself when I was younger. And as a member of the Associated Students of the University of Nevada, I've seen how many students rely on Pack Provisions for their basic necessities, food, toiletries, and such. It's really just a great resource, helps build community, and help students who may be food insecure, otherwise insecure. And I'll also comment that I have a license plate myself. I'm gonna get my parents to get one of these, hopefully they come out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, Amanda Vasco for the record, V like Victor, ASKO, V like Victor. I just want to echo my fellow students' comments here today regarding pack provisions. Aside from food, it does provide personal hygiene items as well as clothing. This clothing is really important because we provide coats, which are really necessary for Reno winters. And as for personal hygiene, I know on more than one occasion, I myself have stopped by for a feminine hygiene care product when in a time of need. So that resource is really important for students. And we thank you for, thank Assemblywoman Anderson for writing this bill alongside with us. Thank you.
Thank you. And before you leave, Ms. Vasco, I think we have a question from Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you so much. I do have a question. I have some coats. Can I donate them to you, or do you guys have a process for obtaining coats that you have in the provisions? Amanda Vasco for the record. To my understanding, you can do that, and I can help you do that. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Wonderful. We'll have Mr. Flores connect with you, make that happen. All right. Anyone wishing to provide testimony in support of AB 151 here in Carson City? Seeing no others, and seeing no one in Las Vegas, Broadcast Production Services, do we have anyone wishing to provide testimony in support by phone?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 151 here in Carson City. Seeing none. Anyone in Las Vegas? Seeing none. BPS, have we had anyone join the phones?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. And finally, we will take testimony in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 151. Welcome, Mr. Sever.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Sean Sever from the Nevada DMV. I am also a proud University of Nevada, Reno graduate. We are neutral on AB 151, but we are happy to work with the university on it. We did want to point out some suggested items, which I believe the chair has already mentioned. One is sesquicentennial license plates usually have a sunset date, including a 3 to 5 year timeline when they're available to the public, and an additional 5 years to order duplicate plates. The demand for these kind of plates does decline after the first couple of years they are available, and there are a lot of special plates out there already. Second, a clarification is needed where the funding goes for the license plate. I know the charitable organization was mentioned in the testimony, but we do like to see that in the bill. So we're happy to work with the bill sponsor on these suggestions, and we can answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And my apologies to the license plate factory on adding another design into the mix, potentially. Members, any questions for the department? Vice Chair Brown-May.
Thank you, Mr. Sever. Just one quick question. Is there a minimum amount that we're trying to achieve with the initial issue of this plate?
Sean Sever from the Nevada DMV. I also have Dave Wiley here, who's the manager of our license plate factory, forgot to mention. And the answer to the question is no, the bill, there would not be a requirement going through the bill.
Sure. Go ahead. Thank you. Just one follow-up. Can you break out the fee? What portion of the fee goes toward the plate and DMV? What portion of the fee goes toward the nonprofit?
Yeah, Sean Sever from the Nevada DMV. We'll have to get back to you on that question.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Kasama.
I have you as a capture here now for my initial question from before. How long do these special plates? Is there a time limit? Is each plate different? Is some 2 years? Is some 5 or some 10? How in general does the whole program work?
For the record, Dave Wiley, spelled W-I-L-E-Y. This particular plate will be exempt from the requirements to maintain a minimum number of registrations, active registrations, because this will have a sunset timeframe on there, more than likely. The other charitable plates generally have to have either maintain a 1,000 registrations or 3,000 active registrations to stay on the charitable lists.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just to make sure that all the members are clear, for anyone who's new to the joy of special license plates, we've had a variety of requirements that have changed over time. One of the main ones for some of the folks that are seeking kind of a competitive process to be able to get a license plate is that they meet a 1,000 plate threshold and then maintain that in order to continue having the plate offered. But similar to any plate after it's discontinued, tends to whoever keeps those plates and continues paying the renewals, those continue to go to support whatever cause is associated with them until they eventually all phase out. And I think we've got a few plates floating out there that have very few left. And then what's being discussed here is something that bypasses that process somewhat, but has a legislatively set deadline at which point those plates will no longer be issued.
Dave Wiley for the record. Yes, you are correct. Even when a plate becomes no longer for sale, as long as somebody renews the registration and keeps that registration active, yes, the plate will remain active in that particular case, and the monies that are collected will continue to go to the charitable organization.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions for the department, thank you very much. We look forward to you working with the bill sponsor and to the extent necessary, our committee staff in making some of those adjustments. Anyone else wishing to provide testimony in neutral on Assembly Bill 151? Seeing no one here in Carson City, seeing no one in Las Vegas, BPS, do we have anyone wishing to provide neutral testimony by phone?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Assemblywoman? Anyone? Okay, no closing remarks. I appreciate it. With that, we thank you all again for your time, and I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 151. That brings us to the last item on our agenda today, which is a presentation from the Nevada Clean Energy Fund. Director Stasio, thank you so much for joining us today. Take your time, and whenever you are ready, you can introduce yourself for the record and begin.
Kirsten Stasio from the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, for the record. Thank you, Chair Watts and Vice Chair Brown-May, members of the committee, for having me here today. I'm looking forward to speaking to you about the Nevada Clean Energy Fund and how we're working to advance Nevada's clean energy economy. I'll start by talking a little bit about what the Nevada Clean Energy Fund is, and for short, we're called NCEF. NCEF was established by state legislation in 2017 by Senate Bill 408. We were established as a nonprofit organization to accelerate investments in clean energy projects in the state in a way that reduces energy costs, creates jobs, improves the standard of living for Nevadans, and addresses climate change. The gap that we're designed to fill that's too often a barrier for clean energy projects is access to capital. Access to capital can be a challenge for many reasons and for a variety of different stakeholders, including that creditworthiness standards aren't being met, the check size is too small to be attractive to traditional lenders, or additional education and technical assistance is required to make a project happen. NCEF's board, as defined by statute, includes 9 members. There are 4 state officials who are ex officio members: the Director of the Governor's Office of Energy, Director Dwayne McClinton, the Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development, Director Tom Burns, Nevada's Real Estate Administrator, Sharath Chandra, and the Financial Institutions Division Commissioner, Sandy O'Laughlin. Another 5 members of the board are nominated by various groups in Nevada and appointed by the governor.
Nominations are made by the boards of commissioners of Clark County, Washoe County, and collectively the remaining counties in Nevada, and by state labor organizations and the Nevada State Contractors Board. The individuals filling those positions are respectively Les Lazarek, Jason Geddes, Robert Johnston, Chris Weil, and Guy Snow. The board brought me on last January, a little over a year ago, as Executive Director and CEO of NSEF to work with the board to launch NSEF's programs. To give you a sense of my background, I have over a decade of experience in the energy sector, including working to deploy hundreds of millions of dollars into renewable energy projects across the US, including in Nevada. NSEF was established as what is known as a green bank. Green banks are institutions that have been operating for over a decade in several other states to deploy billions of dollars into the clean energy economy by providing technical assistance and access to capital. Many of the first green banks in Connecticut, New York, and Michigan were initially launched about a decade ago to implement American Recovery and Reinvestment Act dollars. So even though NSEF is a relatively new institution, we're working to bring proven and successful program models from other states. And we also collaborate regularly with our green bank counterparts in other states. The Inflation Reduction Act includes $27 billion for green bank entities like the Nevada Clean Energy Fund. The $27 billion is part of what's called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is being administered by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, as competitive grants. It's NSEF's priority to ensure that Nevada gets its fair share of these funds. Because with Nevada's fair share, we can do a lot. We can launch programs, a financing program to enable residents of single-family homes to invest in cleaner energy. We could launch a clean energy lending program for multifamily housing developers. We could launch programs to help schools, local businesses, nonprofits, and governments retrofit buildings and transition to clean and lower-cost vehicle fleets. Programs to build community-scale solar and storage, particularly in rural areas where they can serve as a price hedge against dwindling hydroelectric resources in the West. And other programs that we haven't even thought about yet. I want to talk a little bit more about the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The $27 billion is broken up into three buckets that are distinguished by who can apply and whether the funds must benefit or be accessible to low-income and disadvantaged communities. States, local governments, and tribes are eligible to apply for one of the buckets, the $7 billion one. And NSEF is working closely with these other eligible recipients to prepare a competitive application. Only nonprofit entities like the Nevada Clean Energy Fund are eligible to apply for all three buckets. Specifically, the legislation defines the type of nonprofit organization that is eligible to apply for funds as one that is designed to provide capital and other forms of financial assistance and to leverage private capital for the rapid deployment of low and zero emission technologies and projects. In addition, this institution must not take deposits. So this effectively describes the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, and that is because the legislative intent of the statute that created the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund was for these funds to be implemented by green banks. So the passage of SB 408 and establishment of NSEF has really given Nevada an advantage with regards to these funds, these grants, but these grants are still competitive. So we could get none of them if we're not prepared to submit a robust application, or we could get Nevada's fair share if we are, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. One way that NSEF has been working to increase Nevada's competitiveness is by building partnerships. Over the past year, NSEF has been building partnerships with a variety of different stakeholders to not only increase our competitiveness for these funds, but also increase our capacity to effectively implement them. We've been building partnerships with state and local governments, schools, local and community lenders, also with the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank, partnerships with the housing community. We are a member of the Nevada Housing Coalition. We've been engaging with Nevada's housing developers and housing community, and including developing educational programming for the 2022 Nevada Housing Conference. We are also engaging with utilities, including NV Energy and Nevada's rural electric utilities. We collaborated with Clark County's Clean Cities Initiative and NV Energy, City of Reno and Boulder City to bring educational programming about clean vehicle fleets to local businesses and other fleet owners in Nevada. We're also engaging with green banks in other states. And finally, we're also working with Nevada Grant Lab on our application for these federal funds. We see tremendous opportunity in bringing this ecosystem of diverse stakeholders in Nevada together to bring these federal funds into the state and advance Nevada's clean energy economy. Our biggest challenge right now is funding for our organizational expenses. Our federal subgrant from the Governor's Office of Energy has a deadline of the end of June, and we do not expect funds to flow from EPA until next year. We anticipate that EPA will also be considering our organizational capacity currently when determining how much funds to award to Nevada. So we are requesting one-shot legislative funding for the biennium to support our organization and serve as a bridge to these federal funds. This funding would ultimately position us to bring potentially hundreds of millions of dollars into the state and to support clean energy. We're requesting $980,000 for 2 years to support very lean staffing operations and organizational expenses. Taking a step back, I want to make a final point about the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and the opportunity that's presented to Nevada right now. For every 10 million of the federal grants that Nevada is able to capture, that could potentially ultimately lead to 50 million or more in additional dollars over the course of a decade for clean energy projects in this state. These funds can have a multiplier effect, and really in two ways. The first is catalyzing other private capital into this space, and the second is bringing in even more competitive federal funding into the state. And I'll talk about each in turn. On private leverage, the statute that created the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund requires that the funds be used for leveraging private sector capital. And this is really what the Nevada Clean Energy Fund was developed and designed to do, and it's also what I have experience in. Really, we're focused on originating and aggregating investments in partnership with other financial institutions and local lenders, where NSEF's capital is really the catalytic puzzle piece that can make a project happen. On leveraging additional federal funds, 2 weeks ago, I believe you heard presentations on some of the federal funds that are coming into Nevada from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. Right now, NSEF is working on 2 grant applications for Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funds with our partners in Nevada. But I want to talk specifically about the Inflation Reduction Act. We're, of course, working on the competitive grant application for the $27 billion. But the $27 billion is only one part of a larger $390 billion package for clean energy funding in the Inflation Reduction Act. And to put that number in perspective, as you can see in the chart on this slide, it is orders of magnitude greater than the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And 70% of that $390 billion is in the form of tax credits, not grants or rebates or formula-based grants, but tax credits, whose amount is actually uncapped. So the dollars that ultimately flow towards projects will be based purely on adoption rates. That means that if we want to bring in Nevada's fair share of this funding, we need to be able to build the projects that are eligible for those tax credits. We need to actually build the solar, the wind, the hydrogen, the energy storage projects. We need to help Nevadans transition their vehicles to run on clean fuels. We need to enable residents and local businesses to reduce their energy costs. And we need to ensure that they have the access to capital and the trusted resources to do it.
This slide just gives you a sense of what these tax credits mean for individuals and businesses. They have the potential to both reduce the upfront cost of a measure and, more importantly, reduce the ongoing energy bills of Nevadans. There are tax credits for weatherization, energy efficiency, electric vehicles and associated chargers, rooftop solar, and heating and cooling equipment. And one of the other really interesting and important developments of the Inflation Reduction Act is it made many of these commercial tax credits accessible to non-taxable entities like governments, tax-exempt organizations like the Nevada Clean Energy Fund, which makes us a really interesting tool as a 501c3 nonprofit that makes investments, and also to tribes and rural cooperatives. So they can access these tax credits through a cash reimbursement to the IRS, through the IRS. So it's not just NSF's priority to bring in Nevada's fair share of the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. It's also our priority to work with our ecosystem of partners to bring the state's fair share of the hundreds of billions of dollars in federal clean energy funding that's currently at stake. And I'm excited to work with you all to seize this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We'll open up to questions from members. I believe we'll start with Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for the presentation. This is an exciting program. I work with similar programs in California, which there's more money just in general over there. So it's interesting to see the difference in how we're establishing these programs in Nevada. Greenhouse gas reduction funds. Can you clarify for me, because those are federal funds, can those be used as match funds for some of the other federal grant programs that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks? Or are these, like, how will these funds be used to offset costs for projects?
So we're traditional, Kirsten Stasio for the record, from the Nevada Clean Energy Fund. For traditional match funding on federal grants, these funds wouldn't be able to be used as match funds because they are federal funds. However, if you're thinking about some of the rebate programs that are going to be implemented through the Governor's Office of Energy, as well as these tax credits, these funds can be used as bridge funding to enable folks to better access these funds, because oftentimes with rebates and particularly with tax credits, you need to make the investment in the measure before you're able to access the federal funds. And so one of the programs that we're looking at standing up would provide accessible capital to provide a bridge loan to enable folks to overcome that upfront capital barrier. But also many of these rebates and tax credits, they don't cover the full cost of a measure. And so we can also provide longer term gap funding to do that.
Thank you. We'll go to Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Can you talk to us about the role of CDFIs or Community Development Finance? I don't know the whole thing, but anyway, can you explain to us what the role they play in this could be if we were able to make this work in our communities?
Thank you for that question. Kirsten Stasio from the Nevada Clean Energy Fund for the record. Community development financial institutions play a critical role in providing community lending capacity, and many of my counterparts in other states work very closely with their CDFIs. And in Nevada, you all may be aware that we have very limited CDFI capacity and CDFI spending. But I and the Nevada Clean Energy Fund see this $27 billion as an opportunity to develop the ecosystem of community lenders in the clean energy space. So we don't see ourselves as working in a vacuum. And I've been working closely with Access Community Capital, who's a relatively new CDFI. I think their CDFI status with Treasury is still pending, but we're excited to be working with them as a partner. They're active in the Las Vegas area.
Thank you. Additional questions from members? I do have a couple of additional questions. So one, I think you touched on this, but I also just want to make sure that it's clear for all the members. So you discussed there are federal programs, tax incentives that in some cases, may be offered as direct pay. I know there's been some progress towards trying to get those on the front end instead of the back end to reduce, again, that upfront financial barrier. I think there are some rebate programs that exist at many levels, some federally funded, some utility-based, some may be stood up by state government. And then, so your vision really is to figure out how to manage and combine those, and then work with others in the financial sector to figure out what lending instruments are available that can help, and then figure out where your organization particularly can either partner or otherwise fill those gaps in order to increase access to these clean energy technologies. But your role is as a lender. Is that correct?
Kirsten Stasio for the record. Sorry, was your question whether or not our role is as a lender?
Yeah, so I guess two questions. So first of all, is that kind of characterization of the whole financial ecosystem and your role in it accurate? And then second of all, really it's just kind of asking in general, are you making loans, or are you making grants, or are you moving funds out the door, or is it a revolving program?
Kirsten Stasio for the record. Yeah, I think that was a good characterization of what we're trying to do in the ecosystem that we're operating in. In terms of whether or not we offer loans directly, there are going to be instances where we're providing credit enhancements in partnership with other lenders. It's a loan type product, but it's not lending. With other local credit unions and CDFIs to really catalyze their capital into this space. And there will be other instances where, it's clear that there is no player who's operating in that space. And, the provision of technical assistance and education by an entity like the Nevada Clean Energy Fund that has this clean energy expertise is really critical to making projects happen. And in those instances, we would be providing loans directly. I don't envision that we're going to be doing consumer lending, particularly in the early days, just because of the regulations and internal capacity requirements there. So the vision and the strategy is really to start with kind of commercial scale and commercial lending.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate, so there's both a commercial lending component, but then also helping provide some of that capital that allows some of the other financial institutions to do things that they might not be able to do otherwise. And that potentially can reach even broader. How have other green banks been capitalized in order to do the programs?
Kirsten Stasio for the record. Green banks, by and large, a lot of their programmatic capital has come from legislative allocations or PUC rate riders. I mentioned a lot of the early green banks were started around the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act days to start helping to help implement that funding. But if you look at the Connecticut Green Bank, DC Green Bank, the California Green Banks, by and large, they get funding from public dollars.
Thank you very much. And so that's helpful, I think, both from the perspective of the operating, but also from the perspective of that when this idea really kind of started, there was a federal pot of funds that was able to help kickstart it. And here we are again with this opportunity on the horizon. Going back to staffing, I think you discussed how the investment in kind of staffing and core infrastructure helps position us to pull down some of these competitive funds. What do you see as the kind of timeline for developing and deploying some of the initial programs from the fund, if you're able to get some of this core support?
Kirsten Stasio for the record. Great question. My goal and my vision is to have projects ready to go to include in the EPA application, because I think that that's something that they're going to be looking for. So we want to be ready, to start getting funds out the door, start building these projects, for communities to see these benefits as soon as the money from the federal government hits.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sorry for all the questions, but I'm interested in understanding this and making sure that everyone else is kind of aware of this ecosystem. Many of us aren't deeply involved in the financial ecosystem, particularly when it comes to clean energy finance. So, members, do we have any other questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you again so much for the presentation. We look forward to continued partnership with you. All right, members, that takes us to the last item on our agenda for the day, which is public comment. Again, anyone wishing to provide public comment can do so in person or by phone. The call-in information is posted on our agenda. We'll ask anyone wishing to provide public comment to limit their remarks to 2 minutes. And we will begin with anyone wishing to provide public comment here in Carson City. Seeing none, we'll move on to anyone wishing to provide public comment in Las Vegas. And seeing none there, Broadcast Production Services, do we have anyone wishing to provide public comment by phone?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Members, our next meeting will be on Thursday, February 23rd at 1:30 p.m. We will have a couple of presentations from our regional transportation commissions, as well as some bill hearings. With that, we are adjourned.